Thanks very much. Thanks everyone for coming out. I know it's a little bit noisy, but if you can't hear me, just wave at the back, okay? Is that a deal? Okay. So, who knows what happened on this date? 2:45 p.m., May 6, 2010. Any guesses? Well, this is what happened. The Dow Jones Industrial Index lost roughly 10%, which is about $1 trillion, in about 2 minutes. And then within 3 minutes, it had mostly regained the losses. But in that time, it was $1 trillion change. And the reason, there was, of course, complete panic on Wall Street, why this happened. And what had happened is that most transactions, most trades on Wall Street are now done by computers. No humans are involved in most trades on the stock market now. So the computers suddenly had a panic. They started selling like crazy, and they had an automatic shutdown of the whole stock market. But that tells you that something strange is happening in the world. Okay, first example. Second example is UPS. So they're a courier service. They deliver packages around the world. They are spending $1 billion this year on big data. So $1 billion is roughly 10% of the Mauritian GDP. So it's a lot of money. So why are they spending all this money on big data? They deliver packages. Why do they care about data? Well, it turns out that if they can if they can make their drivers drive 1 kilometer less each day, they save $20 million. Okay. So just 1 kilometer, their drivers drive hundreds of kilometers every day. If they can just save 1 kilometer a day, they save. So the big data market is projected to grow from $5 billion to $50 billion in the next 5 years. So it's going to be a huge transition. Why is big data so important? Why do people care? Why are businesses all over the world scrambling? It's primarily because of machine learning. We now have, through computers, essentially artificial intelligence that can learn from the data. So this is a study that just showed that Facebook probably knows you better than your mother does. So what's on the bottom here is the number of likes. So as you give the machine intelligence more information about pages that you liked, you know, when you click, oh yeah, I think that's funny, or that's interesting, every time you click, you're actually revealing your personality. So what's plotted here is as a function of the number of likes, how well either your family members or friends did, and how well the computer did. So in red is the computer, and it shows that once the computer has got access to 300 of your likes, which is probably about a month's worth for most people, the computer knows you better than anyone else in the world. Not your wife, your husband, your mother, your father, nobody can beat the computer. And of course, for businesses, that's incredibly powerful because they know exactly what you want and when you want it. Okay, so that's one of the drivers for why big data is so important. So a similar example now, Google has these self-driving cars. How many of you have heard about the self-driving car? Okay, some of you. So it's now legal in 4 states to drive in a car without a driver. Yeah, you just tell it where you want to go and the car will drive you there. And it's driven a million kilometers. But there's a dark secret. They've been involved in 2 accidents. The first one, a human drove into the back of the car while it was not moving. And in the other one, it had an accident, but a human was driving it. So the computers have never had an accident. So this is driven by the machine intelligence. It's able. They still can't distinguish between, for example, a policeman and a normal person, but it's getting there. Within 3 or 4 years, the computer systems will be good enough to drive basically anywhere in the world. So what has this got to do with astronomy? As I said, this is primarily a talk about how big data and astronomy go together. Nadeem mentioned the SKA. So the SKA will look something like this. Each of these dishes will be about 15 meters wide. And they'll be spread across Africa in 8 countries. And Mauritius is one of the 8 countries. Nadeem didn't explicitly mention it, but the SKA is an international project. There are countries all over the world participating because it's such an expensive project. And Nadeem mentioned that it will deliver an exabyte of data a day. So an exabyte is 1,000 petabytes. And a petabyte is 1,000 terabytes. And a terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes. So you'll get a billion gigabytes a day. And as Nadeem mentioned, that's more than all the information produced by the whole of humanity before the year 2000. So this is big data as well. And so if you think about it, astronomy, the SKA, is a wonderful way for countries to prepare for the big data revolution, for the self-driving cars, for the technologies that will revolutionize the world. And so I think that's one of the reasons why countries are very excited about the SK. Anyway, you might ask, what is driving this big data revolution? Why is it suddenly happening now? Why not 50 years ago? Or why not 50 years in the future? It's primarily driven by Moore's law. How many people have heard of Moore's law? Can I just ask? Okay, a few. Moore's law is the reason that your mobile phone has more computing power than NASA, the whole of NASA did when they put a man on the moon. I have a friend who did his PhD in 1995, and he used the world's biggest supercomputer at the time, and your mobile phone has more power than the world's biggest supercomputer in 1995. And it's driven by this. The size of computing chips is dropping roughly half in size every 2 years. That means the power is doubling every 2 years. And exponential, that gives you exponential growth. That's fundamentally what's driving this growth. And it's called Moore's law. You might not realize this is the size of chips. We're now down at 14 nanometers. 14 billionths of a meter is the size of the chip. To put that in perspective, this is the first picture of a hydrogen atom ever. It was taken in 2013. And if you put them across, these chips now are roughly 1,000 atoms wide. So you put 1,000 atoms next to each other, that is how big the chips are. They're incredibly tiny. And that is the fundamental reason why we are able to do all of this science. The other thing that's driving is not just computing power, but storage is incredibly cheap. Every year, we're able to make more storage. This is a webpage of Amazon. If you're an Amazon Prime customer, it's one of the things, you can have as much storage as you want. 1 terabyte, 10 terabytes, 100 terabytes, they don't care. Basically, storage, disk drives, are basically free for big companies. They are so cheap. They can offer you as much as you want. I don't know, for those of you who are over 35, you probably remember the days when you got, 100 megabytes of email space. Or your company told you, no, you're running out of space, you need to delete some files. Yeah, we never need to do that. Our children will be like, what do you mean delete? How do you delete? What does delete mean? How do you delete stuff, So this is the other reason, because of course, if you're producing an exabyte of data a day, you have to have somewhere to store it, right? And technology is driving that. There are lots of interesting things happening. Google Glass, I'm sure many of you have heard about it, has the ability to record whatever you see. So Google Glass is not very popular, but the technology is there for us to record every moment of our lives. And of course, if someone is wearing Google Glass, they will see all of it. If I was wearing Google Glass, I could see all of you, and I would be able to do facial recognition. I would be able to tag you all on Facebook automatically. The idea of privacy is going to change completely in the next 10 years. The idea of having a private life is going to somewhat disappear, unfortunately. I don't think this is good, but I think it's going to happen. We're evolving in other exciting ways. This is already a year or two old. They printed the first ear, okay? But not only was it a 3D printed bionic ear, they added in a bionic component so that when this is attached to the person, they will be able to hear much, much better than any normal human. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the $6 million man. He had bionic implants. Well, we're not very far away from that. So the question is, we have all this technology, we have all this power, where is it going? Where will the world be in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years? The real answer is that nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. We can project forward maybe 5 years, but after that, nobody knows, which is kind of scary. So one scenario is the following. We use computers, we're starting to use computers to design the next generation of computers. And each next generation of computers is smarter than the previous one, right? So it can design the next the idea is that maybe they'll be able to design the next generation quicker. So at the moment, we are doubling in computing speed every 2 years. But maybe that will come down to every 1 year. And then maybe every 6 months. And then every 2 months. And then every 3 weeks. And then every 6 days. And then every 15 minutes. And then every 2 minutes. We could be, in 20 or 30 years' time, in a situation where your phone is continuously upgrading itself. Now, often it says, there's an upgrade. Do you want me to upgrade? We'll move to a situation where the phone will not be asking permission. It will just be continuously upgrading. And you'll go to sleep one night and wake up in the morning and you won't know how to use your phone because it's changed completely. It's got 100 times more powerful while you were sleeping. So, of course, this is kind of scary. I know I'm very worried about it. But some people say, no, it's great. Computers will be basically infinitely intelligent, and we will be able to upload our consciousness into computers. So this is known as the singularity. And people who say, yes, it's wonderful, say that, we'll be able to live forever. So here's a quick test. I always do this. Who would like to live forever? Can you put up your hands, please? You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, 6. So does everyone else want to die? Who definitely wants to die sometime? Okay, everyone wants to die. Okay, great. So let me ask you a question. Why do you want to die? Suicide's illegal. No. Why do you want to die?
Well, I think it's because the beauty of life lies in its impermanence.
Nice. Okay. Okay, so that's a very typical response. It's kind of surprising because naively you might think, yeah, I want to live forever. But, I was in the car here, I was saying, like after 1 million years, you might just get bored, right? Imagine trying to search Facebook. I know I did something 400,000 years ago. But at the same time, would you want to die tomorrow? Probably not, right? Even though life is impermanent, you probably say, no, actually tomorrow is a little bit too early, right? But if you don't want to die tomorrow, you will never die, right? Because tomorrow, you'll say, not tomorrow, thanks. And then it'll become, next week, and then you'll say, nah, actually, not tomorrow, it's fine, Anyway, these are very serious philosophical questions. And in the past, these were just philosophy. You didn't need to worry about them. You could just have your coffee. But now, this phone watches me. I've just bought this thing. It watches me all the time, which I find very disturbing. So it knows if I'm not looking at it. So if I switch it on and I look at it, it knows that I'm watching the screen. So the screen stays lit. But if I switch it this way, the screen goes dark immediately because it knows that I'm not looking at it anymore. Yeah, that's kind of disturbing, actually, And this is only the start. In 10 years, it's going to be much, much worse. In 20 years, it's going to be even more, frightening. So, a lot of people, Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, are very worried about the future of humanity. Other people say, no, don't worry. We'll upload our consciousness into the computers and we'll live forever if you want. Which one? I don't know. But it's going to be an exciting ride. Okay, thank you very much.